Welcome to Creative Brews. I'm Kristen, and this is your weekly dose of creativity, where photography, design, and life come together. So, grab your favorite drink, and let's talk about what's brewing. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Creative Brews. Welcome. If you are new here, welcome. So, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. This is basically like the second time I am trying to record this. Obviously, I'm not filming today, so if you're tuning in, sorry, today's episode is not a visual episode, obviously. So, yes, I can't believe that we are basically at the end of season 1 of Creative Brews. So, before I get into everything for today's episode, I put up a bonus episode that will probably go up before this one that talks and touches on motherhood. I probably won't talk about those things since I've obviously already talked about them. So you can just tune in to the bonus episode for those little tidbits. Just so that way this episode isn't longer than it needs to be, because it's probably going to be pretty long, just because in today's episode I do want to talk about my birth story, postpartum, how that's going, how motherhood is going, and all of that, as well as touch on the duality of motherhood, mental health and mindset tools, and the spiritual side of motherhood. So, with all that being said, if that sounds interesting to you, I hope that you have a beverage or a snack. I have water because, like I said, it's 11 o'clock. And actually, on the day that I am recording this, I am officially 11 months postpartum, which is awesome, but it's also bittersweet. It's just crazy that this year has gone by so quickly. And it's also crazy because not only am I 11 months postpartum, our little one is also 11 months, which is amazing. But like I've said just a minute ago, it's very bittersweet. I feel like on his birthday, I'm probably going to be emotional. And I'm definitely going to try not to get emotional in telling my story. But obviously, I love documenting my life in different ways. So that way, it's cool to look back on and all of that. So, yeah. And plus, I do feel pretty called to talk about today's episode just because I believe there are some things to think about. And some of those things I did touch on in the bonus episode. And like I said, I'm not going to talk about those again. Not to beat a dead horse or whatever that saying is. So, like I said, this is my birth story. It took so long to sit down and document this, but I definitely feel very sentimental on doing it today, which is 11/12. So yeah, it's just feels like very full circle, fur circle moment. That's what I was going to say. A very full circle moment for sure. But yeah, so I went through a lot of different, like, thinking, oh, well, maybe I should film it this way or film it that way, which is why it took me so long to even sit down and do it, because what I was initially wanting to do is go through all of 2024, put together the footage and stuff that I documented. Like I say, at heart, love documenting my life, and that is one of the reasons why I was thinking about doing vlogging and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you still have other lives around you, you know? So, anyways, and plus it takes a lot of time, energy, and all of that, especially with balancing life, a little one, new mom, new baby, all of that, even if you're not a new mom. As well as a new business, a new book, there's a lot going on in my life, so it's just a little too much to vlog, to wrap my head around that. So this is the easiest way that I can basically do that, I guess you could say. Plus, I just love talking about various different topics, and not only ways of bettering yourself or leveling your life up or elevating your life, however you want to say that. But it's very much just about me sharing, not only about me, but mindset and I guess just elevating your life. I think that's the best way that I can, bettering yourself and stuff like that. Different points of view and things to think about. I found out, what I was going to wrap up what I was going to say, which was I was going to take all the footage that I documented throughout 2024 and put that all together and then, overlay, basically voice my birth story. And as you all know, life, balancing life in general and stuff like that with the new business, all the newness. This year was a lot of newness, for me. So that was just a little too much to take on. And early on, when I was on maternity leave, I actually did try to edit together a quick little, some bits and pieces of 2024. And it just was too much. So what I plan on doing is, where I see fit in today's episode, I will share some cute little memories and things like that from 2024, from my pregnancy and stuff like that. So I found out that I was pregnant March of 2024. Alright, I just took a pregnancy test, so let's see. I gotta wait 3 minutes. Kind of took one this morning and it came out positive, so I'm sure this one will come out positive. Took one test this morning before work, and I just took another one, and it's like almost 4 in the afternoon. So this will be my second one that I am taking. So this is crazy. So let's see. Yep. You can't really tell on the camera. Well, you can kind of see. Maybe. There you go. But it's positive. Crazy. And was basically in disbelief to, I guess I was excited. I was, in disbelief and stuff like that. Leading into when I definitely knew that I was pregnant was prior to getting pregnant. It definitely was not, something on my to-do list. And it wasn't like, oh, well, I, know that I am, this is my goal, is to get pregnant. That definitely wasn't on the radar. Obviously, like, it's not something you can just plan. And I know a lot of people will be like, well, I planned mine, or whatever the case is. I know for some people they do have to sort of plan theirs and stuff like that. But anyways, so I had started basically trying to get myself to get active, start walking, stuff like that. And so on my watch, it keeps track of your beats per minute and stuff like that. It had not alarmed me, but it was sort of in a roundabout way like, hey, there's a new, I guess, beats per minute. I don't know, like it picked up a new heart rate per se. So, and I know the Apple Watches and any kind of watch will say that they don't, pick up stuff like that. It's very loose. In other words, like your heart rate is around this number. You know what I mean? So, but it picked up a new heart rate and it worded it something like cardiovascular something. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, what is that? I don't think that's like something good. So I just took a note in my brain. Okay, I need to watch that because obviously it's on me. What else? Then I obviously the same time. So this next thing kind of happened sort of hand in hand. So I was at work. I think it was like a Monday. And basically got up, from my desk. And I think I was going to go and do something or something like that. And I got super, super, super dizzy and had to sit back down. My coworkers are looking at me and they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, I think so. And they're like, are you hungry? Like, we're trying to, I guess, kind of think out loud of what it could be. Which inside, I kind of already knew. Like, because at the same time, I'm waiting on Mother Nature to, grace me with her presence and stuff like that. And I was already late. So I basically knew within my body what was going on. Like, I'm very in tune with my body. I know my body. I'm very self-aware. I'm very aware, period. Like, when something, and it could be something small, I'm like, okay, that doesn't feel right, or something's different here. So that happened. And then, of course, changes in your body without saying too much. Obviously, it wasn't like I looked in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. No, like, I was, yeah, just no. It's just changes that you can feel. I know everybody's different. So there was that. And then, of course, again, like I said, I was waiting for Mother Nature. She never came, obviously. So I kind of told myself, okay. Which, mind you, the dizziness all happened in the same week that I was like, okay, if I do not get my period by this date or by this day, I need to take a pregnancy test. So I think it was like Tuesday or something. It was all in the same week where I left work, and I remember going and picking up a pregnancy test. For me, it was the one that I bought. I bought the box of 3 from Clear Blue, I think it was. Just so that way, if one came out as like a false positive or negative or whatever the case was, then I'd have 2 other ones or. So I think it was one of the mornings of the same week that I was going to go to work. And thing is, I got home with the pregnancy test and I was like, well, they always say to take the test in the morning. So maybe I should take the test in the morning before work. And that's what I did. And obviously I do have a clip of that. I think I have a clip of the same day, but in the afternoon, because I took one before work. It was positive, and I was like in disbelief of what I was seeing. I was excited, but it's like the world stopped all at the same time, and I was like, oh my God, this is happening. At the same time, mind you, I was obviously with my now fiance, and we were dating. We were not new, but sort of new. So I'm just like, oh my God, I got to tell him, because he lived in a different city. I lived in a different city. It was all just a crazy, a crazy thing. So I just remember thinking, oh my God, I got to tell him. And I'm like, okay, but before I tell him, I really have to make sure, as if the pregnancy test was wrong, right? I got to make sure that this is true. Like, this is, happening. So I think it was the same day I got home. And, see, I kind of wish I would have documented this like early on, because I would remember these things. Some things you kind of like not forget, but you're like, how did it happen again? I remember I got home and I was like, okay, I know they say to take the pregnancy test in the morning. However, I'm going to take one now. I think it was like 4 in the afternoon or something like that. And I was like, because if I'm pregnant, then I should be pregnant all day long. You know what I mean? Like, who says... They say it's stronger. I think the progesterone and all the hormones and whatnot, it's supposed to be the strongest in the morning. But to me, it would really, tell me, yeah, you're pregnant. Like, there's no other if, ands, or buts about it. So I went ahead and did the test, and it was obviously still positive, and it was actually even stronger. So in the morning, which I think is funny, in the morning when I took it, it was, obviously you don't have to squint to see the line. You know what I mean? Like, you could still see, it was a very like faint line, but it was a line. And you could clearly see it. So in the afternoon, it was even stronger. So I went ahead and took, or maybe, I know with all of this, it was within the span of a day or two of taking the test. But I went ahead and took a photo. And I believe either the next day, I can't really exactly remember. It was either the next day or that night, I texted my boyfriend, now fiance, and I was like, hey, we need to, I think I was at work because I texted him on my break or something like that. So maybe Monday I went and got the pregnancy test, and then I think that's kind of sort of how it happened. Anyways, yeah, I texted him and I was like, we need to talk, kind of, and he's like, okay. Like, are you okay? What's going on? And so I remembered it was on my break. I kind of went to my car real quick because, a personal phone call here. Because where I worked, you didn't clock out for lunchtime because you cannot leave the facility. I worked at a security printing facility, so that's why. Anyways, we talked on the phone. I told him, I sent him the photos. The photo only took like one photo. And of course, it was like the world stopped again. And he's like, what? This is crazy, So, yeah, just a world, a pause. The whole world paused for a second for us. So, yeah, that's basically me finding out and how I knew that I was pregnant. Obviously, if I do, obviously I'm going to show the clip and whatnot. You can really tell the disbelief, like, this is happening? Like, oh my God. And some people might be like, oh, she doesn't really look that happy, or she looks worried, or whatever the case is. But let me just tell you, I was feeling so many emotions all at once. So my initial, like, on the me outwardly trying to express excitement, disbelief, and all of these different emotions all at the same time just really left me speechless. You know what I mean? So, in some of the clips, I don't think it really hit me that I was pregnant at all during my pregnancy. I kept waiting for, wow, okay, yeah, I'm pregnant. And I think it wasn't until later in my pregnancy that I was like, okay, yeah, we're doing this. Like, I'm pregnant. You know what I mean? Like, it was just a surreal moment, to be honest, because coming from 2023, for me, 2023 was a year of struggle. I did not know if I was going to make it. To be quite literally honest, and I don't think I'll ever go into big detail about that, just because it is very personal and whatnot. Yeah, it was the year that of struggle. There you go. A year of struggle for sure. And to come from struggling, and I mean seriously, like struggling every single day, day in, day out, sun up, sun down. Which is another reason why I want to share my story, because people, the outsider looking in, would just see this lady who's on cloud nine. She's got a great life and all this other stuff. It does not mean that I've always just, had the lucky girl syndrome, I guess is what people call it, here and there, or what I've heard the term. And it's also not, oh, well, she has it so easy and all this other stuff. No. You know what I mean? I know what it is. what it feels like, what it means to struggle. I've struggled in different ways throughout my whole entire life. So, yes, I definitely have a colorful story. We'll just put it that way. I think that's the best way to put it. I'm definitely not a black and white linear person by any means. I definitely am a grayscale kind of person, like think outside the box. I do think logically, and I do think in reality terms, like a realist, but I am a very colorful human being, like in my brain, in the way that I think. So, my pregnancy 2024 was definitely the year of healing, the year of reflection, visualization. There we go. It was the year of peace, finally. It was definitely the year that I truly needed. And to sort of touch on some spiritual things, which I basically already have, I always knew, or I always thought, and I always really felt that if I did get pregnant or, experience pregnancy, that I would probably be 32. And it was true. Was it manifestation? Was it, I don't know. But anyways, I'm not really going to get into that too much, just because, it's personal. But yeah, 2024, a lot of people saw changes within me, not only because I'm pregnant, my body changed, and obviously, you can't hide pregnancy by any means. I know people out there, but I did, or I had to, or whatever the case is, that's great. I wasn't trying to hide it anyway. So yeah, and with me being so short, there was no way that I would ever be able to hide it anyway, because I don't have that much space, like stomach space. So I was very much all belly. Eventually, yeah, toward the end, I was like all belly. Like all you saw was belly first. Buddha, you know what I mean? Oh my God. Anyways, so yes, we're almost 30 minutes in. I gotta get the ball going here. But yeah, a lot of friends, family, coworkers, I think the people that I even worked for saw a change within me. Like I was still me, but different. I was very much at peace during my pregnancy. That's the best way that I could put it. There was a peace, a calming peace that just washed over me, which was amazing. My pregnancy, all in all, was amazing. Obviously, yes, there were some scares. There were some, doubts like anybody else would have. If you're human, which we all are, we all have, doubts, and we all have, oh my God, but what if this happens? We all have that creep in, which I believe is why I have really honed in on the spirituality. I've always been very spiritual throughout my life, but I definitely dove deep into spirituality just because of what I had gone through before. And two, that's the reason why when people were like, well, I bet you can't wait to have that baby, or, whatever the case is, or project onto me or assume or, share their experiences, which I'm grateful for. Like, I love hearing people's experiences, but I have a hard time with projection mostly and assumption. And so, with all of that being said, no, actually, I wasn't. I mean, obviously, yeah, I was ready because I'm ready to meet my baby and I'm ready to. I'm going to try not to get emotional. But obviously, yeah, I was ready to meet my little one and all that. So, but I was really soaking in the pregnancy. All in all, the precious moments and, the ups, the downs, and all arounds. So, yeah, I mean, there was a scare where it was early on in my pregnancy where the placenta had implanted kind of low. Obviously, that's not going to move. The location is the location. But, so I really, before I talk about that, I really wanted to be active because that's what I was trying to do before pregnancy. And I really, really, really wanted to, just low impact, nothing crazy. I was walking, I was trying to get into yoga and stuff like that. So I continued to do those things. It's just that when they saw that the placenta was low and that the sac was covering the exit, they definitely put me on restrictions for sure. No walking, I was not bedridden. However, it was kind of almost to that point, basically. So, and then of course, I knew that everything was going to be fine. I had faith. I knew within me that, nothing, that it was going to be okay. And obviously, I did ask my OBGYN doctor, well, if nothing changes, what would happen? And basically, it would be a planned C-section. So, that would happen. So, but everything on my next checkup was fine. The baby was fine. Everything was fine. So, the sac moved and everything, which they were sure was going to happen. It's just obviously within the medical field and within every pregnancy being different, you don't actually, there's no like evidence that is going to happen, because you can't tell the future. So, yeah, obviously had some cravings going on. I early on in pregnancy, I was super tired. Tired is an understatement. I was very fatigued, very lethargic. Thankfully, I had energy in the morning to get through work, but after lunchtime, no, it was over with. Like, I couldn't think clearly. I just wanted to go lay down, all the things. So, like I said, cravings, I definitely was a little sweet, a lot of sour. And I'm usually not someone that likes sour candy or sour anything. I think the most sour thing that I'll eat is a pickle, So for me to be like, I want all the sour things was crazy. Of course, I'll share a few photos. I think I had I really don't know what made me put these foods together, but watermelon, and I squirt some mustard on top. And oh my God, I think the whole thinking was that I, was the sweet and sour thing, so I think I had sweet and sour chicken, all the little things, all the sweet and sour things. And then I tried a pickle, like a slice of pickle with Reese's and stuff like that. I mean, these are things that I would not think about doing now, obviously. So, anyways, yeah, throughout my pregnancy, it was, for the most part, great. However, it did become hard to stay active as far as walking. I did a lot of walking. Just because, I heard that that's great. Obviously, it's healthy and all that. However, it was hard for me because I would say probably probably mid second trimester, it was getting really hard for me to stay active. So, of course, I tried to walk as far as I could still and stuff like that. However, the reason why it was so hard for me is because the position of my baby, he was upside down basically almost the whole entire pregnancy. So he was truly like getting ready. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we're getting ready. I'm bracing for impact. You know what I mean? All the things, for sure. He didn't really move that much. I mean, I think he was in that position for, until the end of my pregnancy. Like, I would say mid second trimester until the end, he was upside down the whole entire time. So what happened was that made it really hard for my pelvic area. Obviously, your body's changing, it's adapting, and things are moving around, and you're gaining weight, and you're losing weight, and, all the things. So, yeah. That was, it was pretty hard because it put a lot of pressure on my pelvic area. I had quite a bit of pressure going on and whatnot. So, I believe that brings us to the end, basically. Let's see, I was due to have him December 3rd, which I found out later on that that's also Ozzy Osbourne's birthday, which I thought was funny. But anyways, I was due to have him on the 3rd. Obviously, that did not happen. And I kind of thought that it would probably be going on a week later. I really truly felt that it would be a week later. However, like I said, I'm very in tune with my body. My body gave me fake, well, it's happening, you know what I mean? Like, I had, like, what I thought my water to break. I took a bath, and I actually just sat in the bath, just trying to do all the comforting things toward the end and whatnot. And yeah, like, I got out of the bath and a gush of water happened. However, I waited like 24 to almost, I want to say 24 hours. Just to see, like, okay, well, I started having Braxton Hicks and stuff like that, but they weren't consistent. And I knew that. But, being this is all new, I got, anxiety. And I was like, okay, we need to go ahead and get this checked out. So, yeah, I think I even went out on maternity leave, like, a little earlier than I wanted to, just so that way I wouldn't get penalized for going to the doctor, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. But anyways, so yeah, I think I went and got checked out on the 9th because basically they had me due on the 3rd, and if I didn't have him by then they were going to induce me anyway on the 12th. So we, that all happened. What I thought was my water breaking on the 9th. I just went ahead and told my fiance, I'm driving myself, maybe you can meet me and all this stuff. And he did. He met me over at the hospital and everything. And it was going on nighttime. So we were there for a little while because they were monitoring me and stuff like that. And they just really wanted to make sure that everything's fine with the baby. Nothing's going on. Everything was fine. Everything was perfect. My water did not break. They assured of that. And so basically, like I said, it was almost nighttime. And I was like, you know what? Since I'm so close to the induction date and I'm past my due date, is there any way that we could just go ahead and, kind of get me scheduled for induction? And it was only because I don't know, like looking back now, everything does happen for a reason, obviously. And so I kind of just felt like, looking back now, my body, just since it was all new, because this is all new to your body and everything. Some people, it just happens, laboring and stuff like that. Or their body, go ahead and let's do this thing. My body was kind of just taking its time. I literally think I could have been a week past, or, prior, like, past the 12th. Maybe the following week I would have had him. But I definitely did not want to go over the normal, time of being pregnant, because I do know, I have heard of some women go over, the normal time for pregnancy, but I do know sometimes it can also cause issues, with having your baby safely and stuff like that. And so I just felt like I, done what I needed to do. And so I inquired about that, and they went and asked the doctor and everything. And yeah, so they went ahead and came back, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, we can go ahead and start doing this thing. So I went ahead and had my, thankfully, hospital bag already packed and everything. So when I drove myself to the doctor, I went ahead and had that in the car anyway. And we brought it in because, like I said, my fiance met me there. So he helped to bring it in and everything. So, yeah, went ahead and started, they went ahead and got a room ready and stuff like that. I think they let me sleep for that night, and they were due to do the induction on the 10th, I believe. However, like I said, my little one was in the position of I'm ready, but I don't think he was really ready. And, he kept bearing down on my hips and pelvic area and everything. So, yeah, it's crazy because I think they went ahead, I think later in the night, they're like, okay, well, we'll, let you sleep. We'll see what your body does in the morning. And then by that time, if nothing has changed, then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start the medicine. So that way it kind of helps the laboring process further. So, not to make this a super long episode, because there's other things I want to talk about, but we basically tried everything. My body just, the medicine did not further along the process. It actually, I want to say, I kind of feel like looking back now, again, hindsight's 2020, but I really kind of feel like it hindered me. And they even popped my water. They broke my water and everything because they were like, well, this will help further the process along, get, the contractions going and stuff like that. And they were like, we do have our different medicine that we can use to help the contractions further, kind of get them, kick them into gear. And they even tried a Folly balloon. So what that means is they put a balloon inside of you, inside of your area, obviously, and they slowly fill it up with fluids. That way it kind of helps you dilate, because I was not dilating. That was the whole issue, is that my body naturally was not wanting to dilate. And see, I really wanted to just have a natural birth. But something told me that night that might not be in the cards, because when we got in the room and everything, obviously I'm documenting things. I wanted to document the birthing process, and having my baby and stuff like that, for sentimental reasons, obviously. I know to some people that might be weird. To each his own for this, everybody's got an opinion, like I always say. So, yeah, for me, it just wasn't in the cards. They tried a balloon. It helped. And they took it out because they filled it up as much as they could. And it helped me dilate a little, but not as much as they were hoping. So they took it out. They went ahead and switched the medicine and everything, which in the beginning didn't really do anything. And she being the nurse, even looked at, because they're monitoring the baby as well. And they're monitoring your contractions and stuff like that. So that way, whenever they get closer and closer and closer, they know, okay, it's time. So she looked and she was like, did you not feel that contraction? You literally just had a contraction. And I was like, no. I don't feel anything. They were looking at me like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with your body? You know what I mean? They were able to get me dilated to an 8, I believe. 8 centimeters. So my body was trying its best. It had it, my body was like, yeah, we're doing this slowly but surely. The medicine that I was on, at some point in time, really kicked into gear with the contractions, and I was in a lot of pain. So I don't know if it was the medicine that caused the pain. You know what I mean? Again, looking back now, you kind of have a few questions, but it is what it is. It happened exactly how it was meant to. I truly believe that. In the whole grand scheme of things, we, got him earthside, and he's a happy, healthy, amazing baby. So that is the whole, goal here. So, however, my body did struggle. And basically, I believe the laboring sort of started happening. However, the pain was out of this world, and my pain tolerance is very high. So eventually, you kind of start not yelling, but basically whenever the pain hits or the contraction hits, you sometimes start letting out a screech, so They asked me, they're like, are you sure? Because also they kind of get with you about your pain. How do you want to deal with your pain and stuff? So they were like, are you sure you don't want to do the epidural? And I was trying my hardest to not do the epidural. Not because I wanted to say, well, I delivered my baby with no epidural. No, it's because it's for personal reasons. There you go. I'm not going to over explain that. So I just personally wanted to do a natural birth, and it just was not in the cards at all. So eventually, yeah, I was like, fine, let's do the epidural. I like this, like the pain, it was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like someone's ripping you apart. Anyways, so yeah, did the epidural. We did the half epidural, so that way you're not fully numb, but you are somewhat numb, which causes them to have to flip you side to side, so that way, you stay, one side of you isn't numb and the other side is numb, if that makes sense. So, yeah, all of this is going on. I tried the yoga ball, especially early on, because that's what I was doing at home. Like, nothing was working, basically. So, the doctor came in and said, well, if you do not dilate more, then we are going to have to go to basically plan, I don't know what at this point, because we were past plan B, C, and all this other stuff. So she was like, what we'll have to do is we will have to do a scheduled C-section, or basically unplanned C-section. And she's like, I'm not telling you that's exactly what we're doing, but that is the next step. And I just wanted to go ahead and prepare you, because she knew that I wanted to do a natural birth. And I even thought about doing a water birth. But that just wasn't happening. So, some time went by, a few hours, and she came back in, checked. I was not dilated anymore. My body, I think my body was truly just in shock of what all was happening. And I'm getting emotional because it's not that I don't know, it's just an emotional thing to talk about. So, anyways, she's like, well, what we'll go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and get you prepared for the C-section. Mind you, I went in and checked into the hospital the nighttime of the 9th. December 9th, nighttime, sometime during the night, we got checked in. Started laboring probably the 10th. And it wasn't until the 12th, actually, that, with all of this, with them doing all of these things, like, I really do give it to them. They really tried their hardest. They were trying to work with me, trying to get my body. But I was in the hospital for a week, literally, after it was all said and done. So we did the C-section. How they explained it was, we'll go ahead and swap your epidural, since you already have in the epidural, which was great. We'll go ahead and swap the medicine to the full epidural, so that way you're all numb. You can't feel anything. They did say that you can still feel pressure, stuff like that, which is crazy, and I'm about to get to that. So they went ahead and rolled me into the operating room, got me prepared, got me on the table. Very stark room. A lot of people. There was a lot of stuff going on in that room. Like, there was a lot of people in the room. from different areas. Obviously different departments. You got your anesthesiologist, the doctor, everybody, nurses and stuff. So everybody's getting their stuff ready. And one of the little guys that was back there looked at me and he's like, "It's going to be okay," and he was trying to get me. And I just, I'm getting emotional, but I just started crying and I'm like, I know it's going to be okay, but this, it just isn't what I don't know. Like, I got emotional not because I did not want to do this, but I think looking back now, it just really shows, like, how strong, women are. Like, obviously, in the very, very beginning, I even told my now fiance, like, this is what I want to do, but I am open to whatever happens just to get our baby safe and sound and into the world and in our arms. Like, all in all, looking back now, that is the reason why, I got emotional. And because a lot was going on. So, anyways, they went ahead and got my fiance prepared to come in the room. They went ahead and started on me like ASAP. And by the time he got in the room, he told me that you were all the way open. Like, it took them maybe 5-10 minutes to get, maybe 15 minutes to get our baby out of me. So, he, from his perspective, which is why I wanted to bring on him, because he has a different perspective and point of view. However, it was happening to me, so obviously I can't see everything that's happening, and I'm glad that I was not able to. But a C-section is not something to be shameful of. I don't know why there is a sort of stigma against C-section moms and stuff like that. Oh, well, you took the easy way out. Actually, no. Like, that's the overall theme here. Like, pregnancy in general is not easy, people. Whether you had your baby naturally, whether you had a C-section, you know what I mean? It's not easy. It's amazing. Women are amazing, like I said. We are strong. We are go with the flow. You know what I mean? Even if you don't want to do necessarily, or maybe you had other plans in mind, or, how you would like things to go. However, especially during pregnancy, you don't know how things are going to go. So I was go with the flow. I told myself, whatever happens is whatever happens. It's going to be okay. We'll be okay, and all those things. So for the world and society to put this stigma on C-section moms, no, it's not easy. Like, they literally cut through 7 layers of, muscle, skin, fat, you know what I mean? Moving your organs around to get to the baby. And of course, since they popped my water, you have 48 hours to have your baby. Otherwise, you could have, you could have an issue. And obviously, I was going to do whatever it took to have our baby safe and sound and in our arms. So, yes, it's not easy. I I felt all the tugging. I felt all the pressure. I did not feel pain, obviously. And what's kind of messed up is they actually overdosed me. I found out on the epidural. So I actually, during the procedure, I actually started convulsing and shaking, and my body was freaking out and was in shock. Yeah. I remember looking up at my fiance and wondering, like, what's going on? Like, what's happening? And, obviously he can't tell me other than, well, they're still working on you. They're cleaning you up and stuff like that. Like, he told me that he's never saw, and I'm not trying to be graphic, but this is kind of graphic, so warning. If you're someone who can't do graphic things, like, go ahead and click off now. But he told me that there was so much blood, and after they got our baby out, and he was not able to cut the cord, which is another thing that we really felt like was taken away. I know there's a time limit. They're on a time, like, we got to get this done. We can't just, and I get that. But anyways, he was over with our baby eventually, and he said he looked back and it was like, something that he has never seen in his life. My body laying there, cut wide open. I'm wide open. My area down there is wide open because my body thought, well, we're going to have this naturally. So my body dilated, and it was a few centimeters away from having our baby. So, yeah. Anyways, along the lines of looking up at him and wondering what's going on, at the same time, they're also putting something in my mouth so that way I don't bite my tongue or, because that's how, like, I'm telling you, my body was convulsing. Probably the shock, I'm sure, but I did find out later that they did give me extra doses of the epidural and I believe pain medicine or something. So somewhere along the lines, when my fiance was over with our son, I black out. I don't remember anything else after that. However, I do know from my fiance that what happened was, the reason why I blacked out is because I lost, not only was I in shock and with everything that's happening, but I found out that I lost 1.5 liters of blood. So I passed out because of that. Had to get a blood transfusion and stuff like that. And that is the reason why in my photos, because my fiance, once they finally got me awake and I, was there for a little bit before wheeling me into the same room that my fiance and my son was in. Once they did that, once I was in the same room, my fiance, then I was able to get skin to skin and stuff like that with my son, which was a huge thing for me just because of the bonding. Like, it's a beautiful thing, to bond with your baby. And that's I think that's the whole reason why I wanted to do a natural birth, was because the whole journey was supposed to be of bonding. However, it didn't happen that way, which is perfectly fine. Finally got skin to skin, and of course, I love my fiance so, so much. Yeah, my son, my fiance saved my life more than they know. And he actually, was documenting and stuff like that and taking video, and he did photos and stuff like that, which was amazing. And I even gave him my phone. I was like, here, since we're not really able to use my camera that I brought into the hospital, this is what we'll do instead. So, yeah, and he showed me the photos, and I was like, oh my God, I look horrible. And he's like, what do you mean? You literally just had a baby. Like, you literally just had a baby. So how dare you say you look terrible? And the reason why is because I can see, and obviously it happened to me. So, like, I'm very white and stuff like that in some of the photos. And I didn't know it then. So, me even saying and criticizing myself, like, oh my God, I look terrible. I looked puffy. I looked white as a ghost. I looked like I came back from the dead, literally. And it's because I literally basically did. So, that's the reason why I get very emotional. But, anyways, this is already an hour and 6 minutes long. I told you that it's probably going to be a long episode. That is basically my birth story, and it feels great to finally have it documented. And yeah, I mean, pregnancy is just amazing. Motherhood is amazing, and I'm honestly going to have to divide these episodes up just because this is already so long. So if you stuck around, thank you so much. I don't expect anybody to really stick around for this episode or this long of a story even. But thank you so much for supporting, for all the support that I have seen and have felt. And thank you for supporting this podcast. It truly, truly means a lot, seriously. But I'm going to go ahead and end it here, and I will come back with part 2. I was trying not to have these divided into 2 parts, but I mean, sometimes you just can't dwindle down the story. So, with all that being said, I want to hear your birth story and how it went and how motherhood is going for you. So leave that down below in the comments, or, shoot me a DM. All of my links are below in the show notes and the description below. And I will talk to you all in the next episode, and we'll talk about motherhood and everything. So, yes, thank you so much, and I will talk to you all in that episode. Bye.